This morning's prayer is by Justin Osterman. O God, Spirit of life, universe, it's hard to know what to say, hard to know what to pray sometimes, when fear, sadness, anger, and confusion come over me. This world is so beautiful and so terrible at times. People so magnificent and so malevolent. It's hard to know how to feel with all the wonder and horror happening at the same time. I want to make things right, fair, clear. I want to make people kind, merciful, and just. I want to end violence, heal brokenness, prevent pain, restore hope. My longing is so big, and I am so small. Sometimes despair speaks to me in poisonous whispers. Oh God, be that still small voice that speaks of love, comfort, and hope. Be my calm amidst the storm. Be the fragile, beautiful flower that catches my eye to remind me that seasons come and go in nature, in life, in history. Be the kind eyes that remind me that there are open hearts and hands all around me, waiting to love and help if I will only open myself to them. Remind me in every way that I always have the power to choose how I will respond to life. And then help me choose wisely, act justly, live peacefully, and embody every value and virtue that I wish to see in the world. Help me and every soul gathered in this sanctuary this morning to be and become our best selves in thought, word, and deed, today and every day of our lives. Amen. Our reading this morning is by Victoria Safford, The Gates of Hope. Our mission is to plant ourselves at the gates of hope, not the prudent gates of optimism, which are somewhat narrower, not the stalwart, boring gates of common sense, nor the strident gates of self-righteousness, which creak on shrill and angry hinges. People cannot hear us there. They cannot pass through. Nor the cheerful, flimsy garden gate of everything's going to be all right, but a different, sometimes lonely place, the place of truth-telling about your own soul first and all of its condition, the place of resistance and defiance, the piece of ground from which you see the world, both as it is and as it could be, as it will be, the place from which you glimpse not only struggle, but the joy of the struggle. And we stand there, beckoning and calling, telling people what we are seeing, asking people what they see. Thank you. When I was in England this spring, I stopped in Bath for a day. I have always wanted to go there because all the Jane Austen characters go there. I saw the Roman baths, the beautiful curved stone buildings, the cobblestone streets that Austen's characters walked of an evening. And I stopped at the Jane Austen Center, where I learned more about her life and tried on some period clothing and fell in love with a ring in the gift shop. The ring was silver with a line from the novel Persuasion etched around the outside. Persuasion is not as widely known as Pride and Prejudice or Emma, but it is a masterpiece. It was Austen's last novel before she died, and it's a little different than her other books. She's not trying to be so witty in this one, just truthful. It's melancholy and hopeful at the same time. The heroine, Anne Elliot, is unmarried at 27, which makes her a spinster. It seems she is doomed to live the rest of her life with her buffoonish father and shallow sister. Anne was engaged once when she was 19 to a man named Frederick Wentworth, but unfortunately, her well-meaning friends and family convinced her to break off the engagement because Wentworth had no money. And surely a pretty and wealthy young heiress like Anne could do better. 8 years later, Wentworth has joined the Navy and made his fortune, and Anne is alone. Early in the book, they meet once again, but he finds her so changed, he barely recognizes her. Anne is embarrassed. Wentworth's ego is still bruised. For the rest of the novel, they circle each other painfully without getting back together. Until the climax of the novel, the letter scene. In the second to last chapter, Anne and Wentworth find themselves in the same room of an inn together, Anne to meet a friend and Wentworth to write a letter. It is to her, of course, and it is incredibly romantic. He writes, "I can no longer listen in silence. I must speak to you by such means as are within my reach. You pierce my soul. I am half agony, half hope. Tell me that I am not too late, that such precious feelings are not gone forever. I offer myself to you with a heart even more your own than when you broke it almost 8.5 years ago." The ring I fell in love with captures the sentiment of his anguish so well. It said, "Half agony, half hope." Now, as much as I love Austen, it wasn't my love of the novel Persuasion that led me to eventually buy the ring. You knew I would, right? It's that Wentworth's feelings about Anne are exactly how I feel about the world. I am half agony, half hope. Anyone else? Are we going to have to get 150 rings made? If we are paying any attention at all, how can we not be at least 50% in agony? There is so much wrong with the world. Our seas are rising. New Orleans is flooding again. Parts of the planet are in drought and parts are on fire. We are pillaging the earth for oil, tearing down ancient rainforests for palm oil plantations. The wealth gap is so enormous that the rich cannot even see the poor anymore. Corporate greed is being rewarded, and human decency is being punished in the courts. People are going to jail for leaving water in the desert for migrants, for rescuing drowning refugees at sea. At our own border, families are being separated, People are being kept like cattle. Caregivers are forbidden from giving hugs to crying children. Healthcare is a for-profit sport, and families are going bankrupt to give insulin to their diabetic children. In Burlington, Vermont, a couple's rainbow flag was burned on their porch last month. In Boston, there have been 17 shootings since the 4th of July. In the face of this, how can we not be angry, enraged, frightened, despairing? The world is cruel and hurting. But here's why I'm not 100% agony. On Friday night, at 700 vigils across the country, including the steps of Provincetown Town Hall, people lit candles in the darkness as part of the Lights for Liberty vigils. When our nieces and nephews were visiting at the end of June, they put a message in a bottle and they sent it out into the ocean on a homemade raft built of materials they found in nature. This week, a little boy here on vacation found the bottle and called us because the kids had left the phone number with the note. I've been harvesting vegetables and herbs from our plot at the Wellfleet Community Garden, where I go at the end of each day to see what has grown overnight. I'm always amazed. And my garden neighbor, Frank, always has a gift for me from his own garden. Someone in my family who has been suffering from depression is finding his way back to himself. All the men in my family were glued to the television set to watch the Women's World Cup. I read an article this week about how out-of-work Appalachian coal miners are retraining as beekeepers. My friend's daughter is at the Green Mountain Camp for Girls, and they have as one of their programs a local love brigade that sends postcards to people who need a little support. She colored one for that gay couple in Burlington. In the face of all this, how can we not be at least 50% hopeful? The world is beautiful and good. But here's why I am not 100% hopeful. It would make me a bad minister. Although gratitude, awe, the ecstasy of simple gifts, and connection with nature are all deep spiritual practices of mine, it would be spiritually irresponsible to spend all my days only in praise of what is good, without also tending to what is wrong and what is hurting in the world. Our spirituality, our faith, calls us equally to acts of justice, relationship building, connecting across difference, speaking out, and even putting our body on the line for our beliefs sometimes. And that requires seeing and paying attention to all that is wrong and broken in the world, as well as what is good. We cannot create the beloved community without some sacrifices. And the biggest one for many of us is the sacrifice of our comfort level. We are being called to witness not just the joy, but the pain in the world. We are being called to involve ourselves in situations where we are not sure of ourselves or our place, invite discussion about uncomfortable topics, feel dis-ease, even here in our spiritual home. And this too is spiritual work. Work we have been avoiding as a faith tradition for hundreds of years in favor of our insistence on human goodness and our own acts of charity that make us feel good, but don't, in the end, ask much of us. In her newly published book, After the Good News, Progressive Faith Beyond Optimism, my colleague Nancy MacDonald Ladd writes, "Our churches have preached about our near unlimited capacity to fix just about everything that is broken. We have believed in ourselves so completely that the good news has become a good word about our own capacity to heal things, leaving little room for honest atonement or our complicity in brokenness." It's not a sin, Nancy says, to hope for relief from the pressure of the headlines and the persistent drumbeat of bad news. It is not wrong to yearn for quick relief from existential and moral dis-ease. However, the rapidity with which we move to meet this yearning for comfort and self-assurance is a conditioned response that sometimes arises from the racial and socio-political location of most worshipers in our pews. We are in a hurry to find comfort because we are used to living fundamentally comfortable lives. Most of the time, she says, the people in the liberal church have not been asked to linger long in troubled waters. And yet this rapid movement from meaning-making to assurance of comfort, framed by white people and presented to white people, is jarring for those who live with no expectation of safety or privilege. People at the center of the struggle and the margins of power do not often get the option to move on quickly. Sometimes the hopeful narratives that Eurocentric liberal churches create in order to make this quick and clean transition from tragedy to assurance strain credulity. Today, Nancy says, the idea of idealism is not enough. Casual optimism rings hollow, and triumphal, self-assured liturgies leave our broken hearts still yearning for the chance to sing together in a minor key. The people we serve yearn for that too, she says, for an honest word and an opportunity to hold our shared grief and deep personal brokenness together in community on a Sunday morning. We cannot offer the cheap grace of eventual society perfection in times of systemic desolation, and we cannot sell one another on the idea that it's all going to be just fine in the end. The liberal church, she says, is being called to a new way of being, a less self-assured but equally faithful approach to living and serving in these times. So what does that mean for us? It may mean a little more time spent with the agony. That's new for us. But I think we can do it well together. I think we can do it authentically. And that it can even open a place here for people who haven't felt at home in our eternal optimism of the past. Author E.B. White once said, "I arise in the morning torn between a desire to save the world and a desire to savor the world. This makes it hard to plan the day." I can relate to this. I arise in the morning torn between those things also. I want to be at a cookout with my family. I want to march in the 4th of July parade for racial justice. I want to be in my garden. I want to be at the border protesting. I want to laugh at jokes. I want to cry for children being kept in cages. I want to have a lovely evening at a fancy restaurant. I want to speak loudly into a microphone on the steps of town hall. I want to preach comfort and healing and hope. And I want to preach action and restlessness and discontent. I want all these things. And I look down at my ring now. Half agony, half hope. And I think, yeah, that sounds about right. Unitarian Universalist teacher and theologian Rebecca Parker writes, "Your gifts, whatever you discover them to be, can be used to bless or curse the world. The mind's power, the strength of the hands, the reaches of the heart, the gift of speaking, listening, imagining, seeing, waiting. Any of these can serve to feed the hungry, bind up wounds, welcome the stranger, praise what is sacred, do the work of justice, or offer love. And any of these can draw down the prison door, hoard bread, abandon the poor, obscure what is holy, comply with injustice, or withhold love. You must answer this question," she says. "What will you do with your gifts? Choose to bless the world. The choice to bless the world is more than an act of will, a moving forward into the world with the intention to do good. It is an act of recognition, a confession of surprise, a grateful acknowledgement that in the midst of a broken world, unspeakable beauty, grace, and mystery abide. There is an embrace of kindness," she says, "that encompasses all of life, even yours. And while there is injustice, anesthetization, or evil, there moves a holy disturbance, a benevolent rage, a revolutionary love, protesting, urging, insisting that that which is sacred will not be defiled. Those who bless the world live their life as a gesture of thanks for this beauty and this rage. The choice to bless the world can take you into solitude," she says, "to search for the sources of power and grace, native wisdom, healing and liberation. More, the choice will draw you into community, the endeavor shared, the heritage passed on, the companionship of struggle, the importance of keeping faith, the life of ritual and praise, the comfort of human friendship, the company of earth, the chorus of life welcoming you. None of us alone can save the world. Together, that is another possibility waiting. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be." Please join me now in singing our closing hymn. This one can be found in this book, Singing the Journey. It's number 1015, I Know I Can. Please rise as you are able.